Welcome back. On behalf of President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli is participating at the 6th Mid-Year African Union's coordination meeting in Ghana's capital, Accra. He is to address the meeting on the role of NEPAD in boosting African integration under the umbrella of the African Union 2063 agenda. The Prime Minister will also tackle the fundamental files related to the development of efforts aimed at boosting economic integration among countries of the African Union and also the African heads of state and government, as well as representatives of the African Union, African organizations are all attending the meeting in Accra in Ghana. Also, Minister of Foreign Affairs Badr Abdel met a number of his African counterparts on the sidelines of the 6th mid-year coordination meeting of the African Union held in the Ghanaian capital, Accra. The details are the following.
Minister of Foreign Affairs Badr Abdel met a number of his African counterparts on the sidelines of the 6th mid-year coordination meeting of the African Union held in the Ghanaian capital Accra. Abdel held meetings with the chairperson of the AU Commission and Director General of the African Union Commission. Furthermore, the Egyptian Foreign Minister held a number of bilateral meetings with his counterparts from Algeria, South Africa, Tanzania, Mauritania, Nigeria, Sierra Leone, Senegal, the Democratic Republic of Congo, and Ghana. He also met with a group of notable Guinean businessmen in the fields of construction, pharmacy, shipping, automotive, energy, food products, and agricultural projects. Abdel affirmed that the Egyptian government attaches great importance to strengthening relations with the African continent, especially in trade and economic fields. Abdel's meetings aimed to coordinate the joint African action, evaluate the progress achieved in continental and regional integration, and follow up on bilateral relations between Egypt and African countries. This year's summit is scheduled to address regional integration and follow up on AU policies and economic blocs to enhance capacity for integration.
Well, to shed more on this, we have the pleasure to have with us over the phone our dear guest, Dr. Ayman Ghoneim, the economic expert. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Well, Dr. Ghoneim, now Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli, on behalf of President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, is participating in the 6th Mid-Year African Union. And also the Foreign Minister Badr Abdel is also participating and holding several meetings there. The importance of Egypt's participation in this forum.
Well, actually, the Egyptian diplomacy under the leadership of President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi is now regaining Egypt's leading position in Africa. And this position we must recognize and we have to admit that it had been forfeited in previous decades, and especially in the 1970s, 80s, and 90s. Egypt had a very important role in Africa in the 1950s and 60s. As leading the African liberation movement and as a founding member in the African Unity Organization. But later, for some reason, it neglected its role in Africa, and it focused on its relationships with the North and with the West. Since President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi took over in 2014, he started to regain and to rebuild the Egyptian position in Africa. The economic diplomacy in Egypt in general, it has three main goals. We have to specify them in order to understand the significance of the present diplomatic movements. The first goal is promoting Egyptian exports, because now Egypt is trying to reach the goal of 100 billion USD exports per annum. And the second is increasing foreign direct investment, especially in the Suez Canal zone, the Suez Canal economic region. And the third is procuring finance at favorable or actually at fair terms and conditions, at just terms and conditions.
Yes.
Doing this, Egypt is trying to face the climatic changes and the effects of climatic changes on its economy and on the African economy. And Egypt in this is playing a pioneer role in facing the challenges of the climatic changes and in trying to make the voice of the whole South heard by the international financial organizations.
Yes.
We've seen the Egyptian participation in Paris Summit in May 2023, trying to reach a new global financing pact where the financing organization should listen to the demands and the growing needs and the evolving needs of the South.
Yes.
I believe that Egypt's role with the NEPAD is to play a pivotal role in such procurement of finance.
Yes, yes. So, Dr. Ghoneim, the sidelines of meetings in any summit is very important also because it paves way for the exchange of point of views in closed doors. So, Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli on the sideline of the summit or the meeting have held a meeting with the Secretary General of the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement. During the meeting, Madbouli stressed the importance role of the agreement can play in boosting intra-African trade and to achieve integration and face economic challenges. How did you follow this meeting?
Well, actually, if we look at the bilateral trade between African countries, the intra-regional trade, we'll find that in 2023 it reached around 192 billion USD. This is a considerable growth by around 7% from 2022, but it's still low. It's still at 15% of the total African countries' international trade. So a lot of efforts can be done and a lot of progress can be achieved in boosting the intra-African trade, especially that Africa is an exporter of raw materials. At the same time, Africa has a lot of financing needs that can be coordinated through the African Development Bank and that can be coordinated between different African countries in the form of trade facilities. Egypt has undertaken many initiatives in order to boost the intra-African trade, including, as you said, proposing the Africa Free Trade Agreement, including the strengthening and boosting the Africa Development Bank and proposing many solutions for improving the financing agreements and the financing vehicles adopted by the African Development Bank. At the same time, Egypt is focusing on the importance of the economic integration and economic cooperation between African countries because, as we know, Egypt is the gateway for Africa, especially through its role in the African Union, in the NEPAD, and in the COMESA. It's leading role in all these organizations.
Yes, yes. I thank you very much for your time. Thank you for your valuable information. Dr. Ayman Ghoneim, the economic expert, thank you very much for joining us over the phone. Ladies and gentlemen, a short break and I'm going to be back with you.